Hello, friends. Welcome back to Learn English with Pulsar. Today, I will talk about telling stories and anecdotes. A story is when we talk about something that happened in the past. An anecdote is a short and sometimes funny story about real life. Telling stories and anecdotes is a very important part of speaking. When you tell a story, people listen to you, they learn something from you, and sometimes they laugh with you. In this lesson, I will explain how to tell simple stories in English, and I will also share some anecdotes from my life. When we tell a story, we usually use the past tense. We say words like went, saw, ate, drank, played, visited, or watched. For example, I say, "Last weekend, I went to the park." That is the beginning of a story. Then I add more details. I met my friend. We played football, and we drank tea after the game. This makes the story longer and more interesting. Let me share a simple story about my school days. When I was 10 years old, I had a funny day at school. One morning, I woke up late. I ran to school without breakfast. When I arrived, I realized that I forgot my homework at home. I felt worried. The teacher asked for the homework. I told her, "I am sorry, I forgot it." She smiled and said, "It is okay, but next time, please remember." After that, I always checked my bag before going to school. This story is short, but it shows a real experience and a small lesson. Another story comes from a holiday trip. Last summer, I went to the beach with my family. We took a bus to a small town near the sea. The weather was hot and sunny. We swam in the water, played on the sand, and ate ice cream. One funny thing happened. My father was building a sandcastle, and a big wave came and destroyed it. We all laughed. My father laughed too. It was a happy moment, and now we always remember it when we talk about that trip. Anecdotes are usually short and funny. Let me tell you one. One day, I was walking to the market. I saw a small child holding an ice cream. Suddenly, the ice cream fell on the ground. The child looked sad for 1 second, but then he smiled and said, "It's okay, I will eat the cone." Everyone around laughed. It was a small and simple story, but it made people happy. This is what an anecdote is, a short and interesting moment from daily life. Sometimes we tell stories about work. Once, at my office, I answered the phone and said, "Hello, how can I help you?" The person on the phone was silent for a few seconds, then said, "Oh, sorry, wrong number." I laughed, and later I told my colleagues. It was not a big thing, but it was a small anecdote that made the day lighter. Telling stories is also a way to share culture. For example, in my town, people often tell stories about old times, about childhood games, or about family celebrations. These stories help us feel close to each other. They are not always funny. Sometimes they're emotional. Sometimes they are serious, but they are always meaningful. When you tell a story in English, it is important to use time words. You can use yesterday, last week, last month, last year, or when I was a child. These words show when the story happened. You can also use first, then, after that, and finally. These words help you organize your story. For example, I can say, "First, I woke up late. Then, I missed the bus. After that, I walked to school. Finally, I arrived, but the class was already starting." This structure makes the story easy to follow. Let me share another anecdote. One evening, I was cooking pasta. I put water in the pot and waited for it to boil. While I was waiting, I forgot about the pot and started watching TV. After 20 minutes, I smelled something strange. I ran to the kitchen and the water was gone. The pot was hot and empty. I laughed at myself and said, "Next time, I will stay in the kitchen." It was a small mistake, but it became a funny story. Telling stories is also a good way to practice English. You can start with small stories from your daily life. You can talk about what happened at school, at work, at home, or on the street. You do not need difficult words. Simple sentences are enough. For example, yesterday, I went to the market. I bought apples. I met a friend there. We talked for a few minutes, then I went home. This is a simple story, but it is real and it gives practice. Another story I remember is from a bus trip. One day I was on a bus and a man was sleeping. The bus stopped and the driver shouted, "Last stop!" The man woke up quickly and said, "Oh no, where am I?" Everyone laughed, even the driver. It was a funny moment and I still remember it. Small anecdotes like this make conversations interesting. Sometimes, anecdotes are about mistakes in language. For example, when I first learned English, I wanted to say I am full after eating, but I said I am fool. My friends laughed, and I laughed too. It was a mistake, but it became a funny anecdote. Mistakes can become good stories to share later. When we tell stories, we also show our feelings. We can say, "I was happy," "I was sad," "I was nervous," or "I was surprised." Feelings make the story stronger. For example, "I was nervous before my exam, but then I was happy when I passed." This shows emotion and makes the story alive. Stories and anecdotes are part of communication. They make conversations longer and more fun. When you meet someone new, you can share a short story about yourself. For example, last year, I visited another city. It was beautiful, and I met kind people. This makes the conversation warm and friendly. That is all for today's lesson. Now you can tell simple stories and anecdotes in English. You can use time words, past tense verbs, and feelings. You can share small moments from your life and make your conversations more interesting. Remember to practice. Tell one story every day. It does not need to be long. Just a few sentences are enough. With practice, your English will get better and better. Thank you for listening to Learn English with Pulsar. See you next time. Bye for now.